First of all, I'm Welsh. My language is called Cymraeg. So English is my second language, not my first language, which most people don't realize there are other languages and other cultures in the UK, not just English. I grew up on a small sheep farm in the middle of nowhere. But I was lucky enough to go to a school where the teachers wanted us to advance. So from that rural background, I went to university in London where I did my PhD. Then I went to, where I did my degree. Then I went to Cambridge to do my PhD. I went back home to do my postdoc. So I was still in science. And then I did computer programming for a while. So my background is kind of physics, biology, and computer programming, which is a bit weird. After that, I joined a major farmer in the UK. And from there, I came to South Africa to work on sugarcane. So I've got a bit of a mixed background, which means I kind of worked on the Human Genome Project. I've worked on kind of big projects as well. And I'm also interested in linguistics and where human languages come from. That's kind of my hobby. Okay, we were the original British. The word British comes from Brython, which is our original name for ourselves. The Romans invaded 2,000 years ago. The Anglo-Saxons, the forerunners of the modern English, invaded 1,500 years ago. They kind of kicked us out of England, and we were forced to go into Scotland and into Wales and into Cumbria. Now, our name for ourselves is actually Cymru, which means the compatriots. The term Welsh is actually not very nice. It means a combination of foreigner and slave in English. So I don't actually like the term Welsh myself. So basically, we were the original Britons, but the Anglo-Saxon, there was something called the Yellow Death, which happened about 1,700 years ago, and that reduced our population dramatically. And it's because we were one of the few peoples in Western Europe that still had contact with the Mediterranean and the East and the Christianity of Constantinople. And that brought the disease to Britain. And half our population died, which allowed the Anglo-Saxons to come in. Now, in Anglo-Saxon law, basically, if you're not Anglo-Saxon speaking or basically English speaking, then they can put taxes on you to reduce the number of your population. They basically killed off as many of the men as they could and married the women in England. And so in England, it's very weird when you look at the genetics now. All the male genetics is from Germany, whereas the female genetics is British. Now in Wales, we actually have the markers for the original indigenous European populations. You only get that in the Basque Country in France and Spain, in Wales and in Eastern Ireland. So basically we're the original Europeans who came back to Europe after the end of the last ice age about 8,000 years ago. So not only were the original British, we're also the original Europeans.
So how did the British actually invaded your land then?
Yeah, they did. Certainly in England, they took away all our land, and we had to escape to the fringes of Britain. Over the kind of 1,500 years subsequent to that, they tried to destroy our language, they destroyed our culture, they took all our land away from us. My father was the first generation in Wales to be able to buy our land back from the English. Not to get it back, to buy it back. He was the first generation where we could actually go to the courts in our own language. My brother, who was also a scientist, the first generation of scientists to be able to teach sciences in our own natural language in Welsh. So basically, all colonialists need to learn to be colonialists somehow, somewhere. And the English learned from us and from the Irish. They try to dominate and destroy our cultures. We're still around, but they try to do it. And they've been doing it for 1,500 years. And it's only in the past 20, 30 years where we've started to get our own rights back.
Just recently?
Just recently. It started in my own, in my father's generation. It's continuing now in my brother's generation.
You know, so you know the British, because I've been able to go through, I've been able to do some research, and I found out that the Welsh are the first British colonies. They were the first to be colonized by the British, if I'm right.
We are the first peoples to be colonized by England.
Because
they were foreigners, they wanted to assume our name for ourselves and brought on the British to give themselves legitimacy, even though they had no legitimacy. They're foreigners. And now they think with this white supremacy nonsense that they're the British and everybody else are foreigners.
So they took over they absorbed your culture.
Yes.
You know, so
and they've been doing it for so many others subsequently.
Yes, yeah, because today my name is Patrick, and Patrick is English, but we are not originally English. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
They come into your land and they give you a name.
Yeah, my generation, my name now is Welsh. It means God of mead, or God of drunkenness, literally. But I'm the first generation of Welsh people to start getting our own first language back, so first names back. I would never use my surname because the surnames are something the English gave us. We don't have surnames, we have patronymics. So our surname is basically the name of your father. So I'm actually Dyfed ap Thomas. But the English has forced surnames on us. We don't use them.
So basically, you are an oppressed person by the English.
Yes.
You are also oppressed.
Yes.
And you have okay, let's because you know the British colonized Nigeria and they gave the name Nigeria, and you know there is this tactics of divide and rule that was set in to be able to you know, divide the people and have control over them. Did the Welsh people suffer the same as you had the same experience or not?
Well, that kind of started with us. We had our own leaders, we had our own princes, our own kings, but the English demoted them to princes who were subservient to the English king. And because of, we are actually, all the peoples who the English couldn't oppress came to Wales to come. That's why we call ourselves compatriots, because we were different tribes, we were forced together to become one nation.
You were forced, different tribes forced together to become one nation.
It was either go to Wales and become one nation or get killed.
So it is a natural tactics to bring people of different cultures together and merge them together to form a nation.
Yes, we were all separate tribes, and there are about 30 tribes in the UK before the English came. Now, after the English came, they took over the land, so everybody who wanted to be free had to move westwards, and kept on moving westwards until the final border between Wales and England was established. We were not one people, we were different tribes. And the only way to handle that was to effectively force the different tribes to become one nation.
Quite interesting.
But we still want one nation in many ways. We still had local princes, local kings. And it's only just about 800 years ago that we united under one king. But then the English killed him. So that unity couldn't happen.
Okay, so
we've had no king, no real leader.
Okay, now I want to ask you, because you've been to Nigeria.
Yes, I have. It's only one Christmas when I actually went to marry my wife here.
Okay, what was your experience?
It's a very populous country. The people were fantastic. I have to admit, the people were fantastic. The food was fabulous, but the infrastructure was terrible.
And when you went, what were the things you thought would have been done different from the little period you spent there? What were the things you thought would have been done differently? I said, you know, from the structure that you saw on the ground, what were the things you you know, you thought would have been done differently?
Nigeria is oil rich. Nigeria should be as developed and as wealthy as Norway. The oil money should have been invested in the country and in the people. If you want a glib answer, the glib answer is you all wanted independence. We gave you independence. Now it's your problem. There's also this African attitude to the West. If everything is going fine, you don't want the West to be involved. If there's a war, then you want France or UK or whoever to come in and solve it. And you can't have it both ways.
So, but I personally believe that we've given a lot to the West, to the Western world. In fact, they've taken everything from Africa.
I know, but then again, I'd say we're in the same position. They stole our trees, they stole our copper, they stole our iron. All our natural resources disappear. The only natural resource we have now is in our heads. And this problem is not just an African problem, it's a problem of indigenous people all over the world. Look at the Native Americans, look at the Inuit. Now, native peoples have been exploited and their resources have been taken for centuries, actually millennia. And this is not just a uniquely African problem. The question is, how do you raise above it? You can't rely on the European powers, on the Germanic powers to help you. You have to help yourself. How do you do it? And we did it by education. And that's why I say education, that's the first step to fixing things. Once you have an educated populace, they will not trust their politicians anymore. They will not trust their pastors. They will think for themselves. If you have the education, you can travel anywhere in the world to apply that education.